All right, recording's going. What's up, Jonathan?
Cool. Hi, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's like our first time meeting in like 10 years or like 10 minutes. What's up?
Definitely 10 minutes. Definitely 10 minutes.
Yeah. Everybody, this is Jonathan. I'm gonna give you that big intro. He works at Aptitude 8, primarily in a RevOps associate role, and he's done a lot of good stuff. He's helped me out too in my career, and I think it's awesome everybody meets him. So, Jonathan, just tell me a little bit about yourself, like your age, I guess work, all that type of stuff.
Well, thanks for that intro, man. I appreciate you hyping me up. My
Just
name's
deserve.
Jonathan, obviously. Uh, I'm 23, and I work at Aptitude 8 as a revenue operations associate. So um, we're a consulting firm that helps build out CRMs and internal processes for companies. So it's a pretty fun job.
And how's that job been so far? How have you found it?
It's great. I would say it's one of the most challenging jobs I've ever had, with a really good supportive group of people. So every day's a learning experience. Every day is like a new challenge. It's pretty fun. So I have to say, out of all the places I've worked, it's probably been my favorite by far.
Wow. Okay. Um, we'll get back to that. We'll start. I want to see your story from scratch, and then we'll work our way up to Aptitude 8. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, I can
All
I
right.
can start it off. So not a lot eventful happened in my life until probably when I turned 18 and I got my very first job, um, at like a tire and lube place where we changed car oil. I worked there for a couple of days, left, um, learned not to trust shady places for
Mm,
employment.
okay.
Yeah, we can drill down on that if you want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to talk about that or no?
Yeah, it was an interesting place. It was my first job. The guy interviewed me, hired me the same day. I started the next day. I made terrible money under the table, got paid same day, and it was just a bad place to work. He was not a great boss,
Hmm.
but it was my first introduction to, I guess, like the real working world. So that was pretty interesting. Like the work was decently challenging. I knew nothing about cars, working on them at all. So even though it was just changing car oil, um, so it was pretty neat. But it gave me my first real taste of what making money was like, and that kind of like lit a fire under me. And I was like, I love this. I like having my own money. I like that sense of independence. Um, and after I quit there, I immediately started looking for another job. I worked at a pizza place for a bit as a dishwasher, and then I started working at Walmart for a bit, as a car pusher, which is not a fun job unless you like walking around in the hot sun all day. So, um, and then eventually I ended up working at Whole Foods as a dishwasher again, which is kind of where I'd say like things start as far as
Hmm.
like my career goes. So I worked there for a couple of months, and I became pretty good friends with some of the management there. And at the time, we didn't have any immediate like leadership. So I didn't have an assistant team leader or a regular team leader, or
Right.
even a supervisor. So my assistant store leader at the time, kind of used me as like a pseudo supervisor sort of role. So I picked up some more responsibility. I kind of was his eyes and ears when he couldn't be around. And I just tried to learn everything I could, whether it was working in the kitchen, keeping things organized, and all of that, which was really, really nice. And I think it helped. It's part of what helped me set up for my next role. Um, a couple months after that, I was learning more about receiving and ordering at Whole Foods, and we hired a team leader at the time, and he thought I would be a great candidate for their buyer position. So buyers handle all of like the logistics for products moving into the department. So we manage writing all of the orders, taking inventory, really paying attention to like product flow and what our sales are, and coming up with like what orders we need, planning out our pre-orders and all that stuff, making sure that product movement is in a healthy spot so that we can make all of the things that we need to sell, pretty much. So it's a really, really important role, and it
Yeah.
was really complicated and hard to get down, but it's a lot of fun. And I think it was the first time I ever like really, really, really liked the job I was doing.
Hmm.
It was pretty technical, but it was nice. So
Interesting. How was that transition from dishwasher to, was it product? I didn't catch the name. I couldn't hear. Was it product buyer manager? What was it?
It was buyer was the
Buyer.
official term. It's a really
Mhm.
bad name, but order writer is like the other thing that we call the role. So
How was that transition? How did you find it?
so the easiest way I can say without throwing anyone under the bus was so I was dishwasher. Another dishwasher started receiving because our buyer became our assistant manager at the time. So we didn't have a buyer. He had a lot of other responsibilities, but he was the only one who could write an order. So he would write the order, and then someone else would put away the order. And the guy that was doing it was not the greatest. So he called out one day, and I told my boss, I went, "Yo, I want that time, so I'll do that." You know, I'm like, I would love to. I think it sounds fun. So he went,
Yeah.
"Can you be in tomorrow at 6 a.m.?" And I just went, "Yes." So I closed that night, woke up 4 hours of sleep, went in, and I put away the truck was essentially what I did. And then I was like on him. I was like, "You got more to do." And I guess he liked it because he kept scheduling me to do it from now on.
Hmm.
So that's what I did. I managed putting away the order. He had me take inventory for him a couple times. Eventually, that guy left the company, which led to that kind of void that we had. And
Right.
when I got a new team leader, I was still the one putting away the truck. I was still the one like helping out around the kitchen and all that stuff. I'd kind of moved out of dish unofficially.
Yeah.
So I was handling a lot of these more like slightly above standard cook kind of things. You know, I was helping take inventory. I was helping put away all of the stuff. I was helping keep the kitchen organized and people on task. And I was kind of just getting my hands dirty and everything.
Right.
So we hired a buyer in that time, and my new team leader wanted to train me to be his backup. So I was slowly learning how to write orders. And I probably did it for like 2 weeks. And then the guy that was the buyer decided, I don't want this job. It's not really what I thought it was. He just wanted to give it. So he stepped down, and my boss kind of just went, "Okay, you're doing this full time." And that's kind of how like I got there now. So slowly just learned some stuff and then kind of got thrown into it. And once I started doing it, I very quickly found out like this is really intimidating. It's really hard, and it's weird because when you spend $20,000-$30,000 of anybody's money, you kind of feel bad if you mess up.
Hmm.
Is what I'd say. It's a lot of money, so big company, but still a lot of money. So like that's kind of how I just got tossed into it.
Wow. Yeah. And just for context, I'm assuming like the $20-$30, these are all like groceries, or is it like electronics and furniture? I don't know what exactly is in Whole Foods.
Okay, Whole Foods doesn't sell furniture as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
So the department I worked in was prepared foods,
Yeah.
which is like ready to eat. We basically sell ready to eat food, whether it's products. So we do have some products that like come from vendors that are already ready to make, like we have like little enchiladas, burritos, stuff
Mhm.
like that. Another thing they did, at least at the time there, was we had like these already ready to heat up like meals, and then they also have a hot bar, have a deli counter, a pizza venue, or we make pizza in house. We make fresh sandwiches, just all kinds of fresh prepared food.
You pretty
So
much manage the whole store. Yeah.
not the entire store, just that department. You
Okay.
know? So like grocery has its own buyer that buys all the grocery products. Produce has its own that buys all the produce stuff. Meat and seafood kind of do their own thing. Bakery does their own thing. So I was in charge of buying raw meats, raw vegetables, all of that stuff, as well as vendor product that goes straight on all the shelves. So we made a lot of stuff in-house. There's a lot of stuff we didn't make in-house. There's a lot of things that run back and forth. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about it, so I won't.
Okay.
But yeah, so all kinds of things, mostly perishable food, which is a challenge to keep inventories full because you gotta weigh how much do I actually need to keep the shelf looking full, but also it has an expiration date on it. You can't sell people bad food, so
Yeah.
you kind of gotta take the risk.
Just to reiterate, I think that's a pretty interesting way to get to your position. It reminds me of the story of like that janitor who became a movie director just from working at a movie studio, and like where responsibility was abdicated, he just said, "Yeah, I'll do it." It sounded like somewhat similar. I thought that was really cool.
It it's kind of my approach to my career, because I noticed very quickly, like in Whole Foods, that's how I moved up. So after becoming a buyer, I eventually became an assistant team leader. And it happened in a similar way. I took on a ton of responsibility. I really owned being a buyer. I was like, okay, we're overspent. Why are we overspent? How do I figure this out? There was a period of time when I even had to meet with like my store leader daily just to go over this stuff. And I learned a lot about like where my orders are, how to control like the flow of them to get the right amount of products. It can get pretty technical, but we won't dive into all of that. And I kind of just started taking more and more responsibility. You know, if we didn't have a supervisor or our assistant team leader was out late, I went, okay, what were his responsibilities and how can I do? Like, what can I take off of your plate? What else can I do?
Right.
You know, I try to get as good at my job as I can. So what took some buyers, 6 hours to do, I got really systematized down to it being like a 3 or a 4 hour thing. So, and then I tried to plan ahead. So every week I would pull reports. I had a lot of pre-orders to write and plan out, and a lot of like administrative kind of tasks. So my approach was, well, most of this I could bundle and do every Monday. So I carved out like 3 hours every Monday, and I would just make Monday the day that I basically worked at the desk my entire day. And I would do all of this work, get all of it done, knock all of it out, do the reports, any admin like tasks that I had to fill out for my boss, their bosses, any of that stuff, plan for my entire order ahead of time. Also convinced my boss to move some of our meetings to Monday so I could just bundle it all. And then that gave me a lot of extra time later in the week because I wasn't thinking about, oh, what's this pre-order going to be? I wasn't figuring things out in the moment. I had all that work done. So
yeah,
I basically could come in, count, place my order, and then my job for the entire day just got finished in 4 hours out of my 8-hour shifts. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So by kind of employing some tactics like that, I gained a bunch of time, and I took that extra time and I went to my boss and I went, what do you need that I can do? And I took responsibility off his plate. I spent more time learning more of the skills, that the cooks had in the kitchen. I learned how all the different venues worked. I learned more about the food safety and the processes and a lot of our procedures and why things were important. And then I spend a lot of time learning more about the more business side, how labor works and how forecasting and our financials work, just to kind of reinforce and, add to that. And eventually that led to another period of time when we didn't have leadership again. And it was me and another supervisor at the time. And because I had learned a lot of that stuff, it made it that much easier for me to step up and take on more of that responsibility. So I kind of just owned it as much as I could while I was there. I'm like, what can I be in charge of? When no one else is there to take this, and I just picked it up and I went with it, and I tried to be as much of a leader as I could at the time.
I love that.
So, and then, I was gonna say, and then eventually that's part of what I think really contributed to me moving up to be an assistant team leader later.
No, I really think that's awesome. The two things I personally really took away from that was the ownership you had over the work and the work others were doing. You always took on whatever you could. And the second thing was the systematizing of processes. You mentioned how you took things that took others like 5 hours down to 3 hours. I thought that was really cool as well.
Yeah, a lot of it was really simple too. It was just organizing how you're doing things. I batched similar processes. I planned ahead. So you could, in theory, you got to place different orders different times of the week, and some of them, like, you could plan them all out, which is what I did. I just did all of it Monday, because the information you're looking at from prior weeks is the same. Or you could figure it out and write that order every day, which to me kind of felt like a waste. If I'm going to look at it, let me do it all when my mind's fresh and I'm looking at the data now and just write it all out, and then just trust that Monday me knew what he was doing. And then Tuesday me doesn't need to do that. Obviously, it's
no, I love that. Yeah,
I always like that, but like it helped out a lot, and it also gave me more control. If I had to be off those days, like I knew what was going on, I knew what was happening. So yeah, and then from there, I was an assistant assistant team leader, which I learned a tremendous amount during.
I was just about to ask, like, what are the things, like the most important things from the job, either as a dishwasher or a team leader or a buyer?
Biggest thing that I learned while I was there is take ownership of your work. That's the easiest way to improve, and the easiest way to like be a genuine, respectful person in your work environment. You know, own your work, own what's up. When you're in charge of people, own their work. You know, when I was an assistant team leader, my team's work defined me. I didn't have a lot of work that was me that I did that like showed. You know, other than scheduling and financial results, but that was relying on my team. So, you know, own that. Like if there's mistakes happening in your team, well, that's on you. What can you do to improve that? Like, what do you have control over? So that's the biggest thing. Is that ownership?
That's a great mindset for a manager. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that from an amazing leadership book by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. Definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorite books, hands down. So that was a huge one. Systematizing everything, like standardization is great for most tasks, most jobs, especially if you do a lot of the same things over and over. You know, get an SOP written, get like a standard process going, get everybody on the same page with how something is done. When people do the same thing in different ways, things get inconsistent, stuff happens. It's really hard to figure out what's going wrong. That's a big thing. You want everybody on the same page, including yourself. Those are probably some of the biggest things. The other thing is sometimes like you just need to put your head down and hustle. Through COVID, when I was an assistant team leader, that was very apparent. Sometimes you just need to just go.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any situations, because you mentioned when you transitioned from a dishwasher up, it wasn't really like a formal process. It was more like, okay, here's the stuff here. You know, did you ever have to negotiate your pay or anything like that? Or did they just assign it to you as you moved up?
For the most part, I kind of just went with what I was offered, which I learned later probably shouldn't have done. That was a big personal learning for me. But it wasn't bad. It's not like I got ripped off or anything. It was more that I should have taken that opportunity and asked. You know, they weren't going to fire me. If I went, no, I want to be paid X amount of money instead of what you're offering me, they're never going to be like, well, you're fired. We redact our offer. Like they'll bluntly be like, we can't do that. You know, and you can either take it or you can leave it. That's really up to you in the moment. But that showed me eventually when I left Whole Foods, because it just wasn't the right place for me anymore. And I was applying to other places. There was one company actually that I interviewed with, and what they had offered me just wasn't what I needed. Like I couldn't pay my bills. And I straight up told the man, I'm like, look, if I do this, I need to work another job. This isn't enough for me. And he came back and he offered me, you know, like an extra $7,000 in salary, which was huge. At that moment, it kind of clicked, and I went, oh, I just need to ask for what I want, you know?
Yeah.
The worst case is I get told no. So
it feels really scary, but then once you do it, it just...
It is so intimidating. But I've learned that, you know, they're people too. They get it, you know? I think you just need to be honest and upfront about it. Like, don't lie and be all scummy and be like, I need to make $80,000 to, you know, live out in the middle of nowhere. Like, do you actually? Is that worth it for the position? There's a lot of little things that go on, but, you know, and if it's not enough and you think you're worth more, don't work there. Find another job, you know? Like, if you really, really, really need to work there and you need that job, then sometimes you got to just take it and go with it. That's life. So, yeah.
Okay, that was awesome. My last question on Whole Foods is, why did you or did you not like working there? Like, what are some pros and cons?
For me, I don't think I'm a fan of working at really large companies, and that's not a good or a bad thing. Whole Foods was very fundamental for me to grow as a person, personally, professionally. I learned a lot there. I met a lot of great people, but I really wasn't a fan of working in retail. I'd say long term, it wasn't challenging in the ways that I wanted it to be, which is kind of why I'm really happy that I moved to a company like Adam T8. But there wasn't a lot. My favorite part about working at Whole Foods was being a buyer, being in that operational role, seeing all those moving parts and learning more about how our business worked and why. And the career path I was going, I would get a bit less of that, and it'd be a lot more people management, which it wasn't what I liked doing at the time. So that's kind of why I wanted to leave. So.
Mm-hmm. I completely relate to that. People management is like probably my worst skill.
It's a good skill to have.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good thing to learn, even if you're not going to be in a management role. Understanding that it makes it that much easier to work with a manager and to understand things that they'll want. But it's definitely not for everyone. It's a very stressful and hard job.
Yeah, especially taking on other people's, I wouldn't say control, but the actions that they perform are what reflects on you, right? That's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. So.
Yeah. Okay, that was a great learning experience. Thank you for sharing all the information on Whole Foods. I'm assuming right after that you went to Praxis, or what was the next step from Whole Foods?
Yeah, so a couple months before I left Whole Foods, I heard about Praxis through a podcast by Matt Diavella. He had talked to TK Coleman, I believe. And when I first heard about it, I'll be real, I thought Praxis was a scam. I went, there's no way this is real. It sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
And what they had said during the podcast, a lot of it really resonated with me about, building your own path and, learning and exploring like different routes.
I'm going to butt in real quick. I should give you want me to give the context for Praxis, or do you want to?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. So Praxis is an apprenticeship program. It's a 1-year program. You spend about 3 to 6 months learning. They teach you a few skills and really building your mindset, I would say. They're getting you ready, and then they place you with a job, a business partner. And yeah, you just start working. Yeah. And usually the average salary is about, I think, median $50K after a year. It's a pretty good, it sounds like a scam because, you have to go to college for 4 years. Like, no, we offer it in 6 months. And no, it was good. So yeah, sorry, Jonathan, go on.
Yeah. No, you're good. So yeah, it's a pretty cool program. So I heard about it. I reached out, talked to them about it. After a webinar and 2 phone calls, this place sounds too good. And I went, screw it. I don't have to pay any money until I graduate. So it can't hurt. And if it doesn't, they do guarantee your money back. So I was like, whatever. I really needed a change. So I decided to go through with it. I started it would have been August of last year. And the first 3 months of the boot camp some of them were really challenging. Some of them, weren't like the most challenging. But it was good. It really taught me how to, it taught me, what's weird is I would say Praxis teaches you how much you don't need to practice. Learning about how accessible information is and how you can build all of these skills by yourself in a really independent way. And then they show you how to showcase all of this stuff, and the thing that hit me the most after the program was, wow, I met all these really incredible people and I learned all of these things, and I know how to build new skills and market them really well. And then eventually I found out about Aptitude 8 when I was during the placement part of my program. And I applied and they thankfully hired me, which is awesome.
That's amazing. Tell me about, so while you're in Praxis, you went through that educational phase, and after that, just for context, they don't pair you up with a business partner. You have to do your own job applying, right?
Yeah.
How was the job application process? How do you find the job hunt? Was it stressful? Was it awesome? Was it?
It was so stressful. I had just moved and I had no job at the time. So I was like, I think it was like 4 months left to pay in my bank account. And if I don't have a job, I'm going to be homeless. So it stressed me out quite a bit. But I started off really strong and motivated. And then I had some dips where I felt a little bit less motivated. But it was pretty exciting. I started out, I really wanted an operational job, but I felt like there's not a lot of entry-level operational jobs. So I applied to a lot of executive assistant jobs, a lot of personal assistant jobs, any entry-level operational, fine, I applied to. And then I applied to a bunch of marketing associate kind of roles. So no one called me back for the first month. The second month, Praxis reached out to me and said, "Hey, this guy wants to interview you for chief of staff position," which is really cool. I will say you meet some really incredible people going to Praxis. That was a really enlightening interview. He did not call me back, unfortunately, but that's what it is. And I want to say it kind of killed my motivation a little bit, but I kept going. You need a job. And then I want to say 3 months in, like 3 different people reached out to me to interview, which was really, really weird. And it very quickly showed me, like, this is what my worth is. I ended up turning down several of those offers. At the same time, I was also doing a revenue operations project that Praxis kind of sets up in partnership with the company Aptitude 8. And I was going through that, and I reached out to Aptitude 8 to talk to a bunch of people that work there, which is where I learned a lot more about it. And they hyped up the company, told me how great it was, talked a little bit about revenue operations, what it goes into it. I very quickly went, I need to work it. Like, this sounds dope, and when I was talking to them, I was also kind of redefining what my long-term goal was going to be at the time. At first, it was I really want to be like a COO of a company. So I was trying to find jobs with a similar pathway to that. And after I started talking to people at Aptitude 8, I decided to apply there, and I was really gung-ho on getting a job that would set me up to be an operational professional, but a consultant. Because I was like, how cool would it be to consult startups and small companies and help them build out, their entire framework for how their company works and flows, right? So that'd be pretty sick. So I actually ended up interviewing and getting hired at Aptitude 8, which huge success and kind of fun. So that's kind of how my job hunt. Thank you. That's kind of how my job hunt process went.
Okay, wow, that was an experience for sure. For context, I met Jonathon right as he was getting into the job hunt, pretty much. I met you December, right? Around there. And November? Wow, okay. Right when I joined. Yeah, and I met him through Praxis, and I was with him in that job hunting journey, and yeah, it was just, I thought it was amazing. You didn't give up, and I thought it was cool. I wanted everybody else to hear that. So then you got your job at Aptitude 8, your dream job, I feel. Am I wrong?
No, you're on the mark.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I can tell you really appreciate Aptitude 8. Why do you appreciate it? Why do you love the company so much?
The people is the easiest way I could say it. The culture that Aptitude 8 has, and I know this makes it sound like it's a cult, but it's super inclusive. Everybody is really, really great. When I first started there, I didn't know a whole lot about RevOps. I had basically done HubSpot trainings and Trailhead training. And from the beginning, they were super on top of and supportive and kind. And they were like, look, this is what you'll need to learn. Reach out to us if you have any questions. It's a remote company. So none of us see each other face to face, which comes with a lot of challenges. But other team members, like on my team, for instance, are always looking for work that they could pass down to me that could give me more experience and exposure. They're always very supportive, and they're like, how can I help you? What can I do to help you, grow in your career, learn more, accelerate that. And then there are a bunch of really, really smart people as well as compassionate. And it's, the combination of all of these things is you end up just having a really great place to work. Everybody at the company is beyond friendly, is super nice. They're very supportive. And they're very people first. They don't believe in working so hard that you get burned out and then continuing the grind. It's very much some projects are definitely going to need that extra level of attention and work, but they never want anybody burn themselves out, which is awesome. And they believe very firmly in doing just good work.
So I want to bring back to a point that you brought up. Do you find it weird that people want to help you, that in Aptitude 8, that they want to help you grow and succeed?
It's different, what I would say. A lot of the jobs that I've had prior, the focus was more on just getting the job done and doing the work, and was less about you individually. not to say there wasn't career opportunities. There always was. When I was at Whole Foods, there were people who were very much upset that I was leaving. They were like, you know, like, you have a future here. You can continue to grow and, you know, be better. They have whole programs for that. But I would say it's a little, it's the approach is different, you know. But part of that's also working for a really big company and a corporate company, and then working for a really small company. Aptitude 8 is pretty small. We have about 40 people. So it's a lot more, like, everybody kind of knows each other, you know, as opposed to where, I mean, that's a company with millions of employees. Very different.
Yeah. Do you prefer remote work, or would you prefer an in-office working at Aptitude 8?
When it comes to office work, I prefer remote. I like it. The flexibility is nice. I think every now and then being able to see your team and talk with them and stuff is great, which is why I'm a very big advocate of in-person events. Like, I think they're dope. You get to meet your coworkers, maybe have a drink with them, socialize, get to know each other more. But I like remote work more. And I think if you do it right, remote work is more powerful because you give everybody that flexibility they need to do what they need to do in their lives.
Interesting. Oh, I agree with you. I'm a huge proponent of remote work myself. So my last question for you, well, there'll probably be more, but for Aptitude 8 specifically, was what's your biggest challenge there right now?
That's a tough one.
Or when you started, whatever you prefer.
Well, I can give you them both. When I started, the toughest challenge was understanding what was going on. I got thrown on a really big project that I'm not allowed to talk about. But it was huge. It was way over my head, and I had no idea, you know. I went from HubSpot trainings to the workings of a massive company, and my brain just broke. So trying to get up to speed to understand that was a huge challenge. Between that and getting used to remote life. When you work remotely, nobody is there to force you to keep working. You know, it's all you. Like, you need to will yourself to get up, get on that computer, log on, do that work. So that was not the easiest thing to learn.
How do you will yourself to do that?
I like working and I enjoy the work I do, so it's not that challenging. You know, the other thing is, like, I care about the work I do a lot, and I want to provide value to, like, our clients and to the team around me. So doing that it's kind of like a drug in a way, you know. I love it. So that alone kind of helps me get out of bed. Just want to get on, get to work, you know, start making these people and their businesses run better. So I'm all about that.
I like that. Yeah.
My biggest challenge now would probably have to be, you know, I'm trying to learn more about being a consultant and that consultant role, and having those conversations, especially those discovery conversations with clients, it's difficult because it's not just talking, but what we do is really technical, and clients hire us because they don't have all of that technical knowledge necessarily. So being able to translate what information I need to get from them into something that's really easy to digest and understand, and then being able to translate what they give me back into the technical information I need to build and give them a solution, that's really hard. It takes a lot of practice.
Like, to summarize, business processes to technical projects, and then vice versa as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Because a lot of, you know, it's not always the easiest to talk about, like, your sales process and how that translates into HubSpot or Salesforce, or maybe the other different tools you need. So understanding that, and then sometimes there's a lot of business lingo, so much, and people will call things different things, or they're called different things in one application to another. So understanding that and being able to, you know, translate that and come up with a good solution, something that works, something that's robust, something that saves them time and money and energy and helps them, you know, do their job better.
Is that your primary interest at Aptitude 8 right now, like designing great solutions, like a solutions architect or something like that? Yeah.
Actually, we do have a role called solutions architect, and that's pretty much what they do. A lot of it's strategy, a lot of it's planning. It's we do a lot. So Aptitude 8 not only like designs solutions for companies, but they also implement them. I'm much more interested in, I'd say, like the strategy work, you know, like the big picture stuff, coming up with, you know, like this is how your sales process is going to work. This is how it'll work within your tech stack, you know, defining like the data, the flow of data, and all of that. So
I think that's more challenging too.
It is. A lot of it's really, it requires you to understand a lot of different concepts, which is hard. And then you also really need to know a lot about the tools. If you don't know a lot about the tools, it's really hard for you to come up with adequate solutions.
Yeah, you have to know what you can do. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in the same boat. Yeah. I'm just going to give a brief thing about myself personally. I'm in the same boat where it's like, I'm trying to level up to something similar to like solutions architect, not on the scale Aptitude 8 is doing, but it's like, first I have to understand all the tools and then designing the solutions and like putting it all together. I completely understand what you're saying. It's tough. Yeah. So Aptitude 8 means you work a lot in HubSpot. Do you have any like spreadsheet tips to share, or like any interesting spreadsheet knowledge that you have?
Oh, index match and VLOOKUP are my favorite things in the world. Pivot tables. Index match is OP. So big thing, anytime you're messing around with data, copy it. You know, don't mess with your raw data until you have a copy, because you're gonna mess up. I know that from experience. We had to do an import into HubSpot one time, more than 100,000 contacts and all their information, and I messed up with my import. That was giving me errors, and thankfully I copied my data because I started from scratch and I went through the process of putting the data again, and that time it just worked exactly how it needed to. So if I didn't have that data on, you know, backed up, I would have just been screwed. It would have been a really, really bad time.
It would have felt disastrous, especially that was like when you started out, right?
Yeah. And formulas are like super good for things. You know, if you learn and understand how concatenate works, learn more about index match, which are two formulas, but you use them in conjunction. It's really great for finding and kind of stitching together information, which sometimes you really need to do. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for those tips. Index match, VLOOKUP, and concatenate.
Yeah, concatenate basically lets you put strings of text and numbers together. So say I have the name Jonathon and the name Lopez for first and last name, and I need this to be full name. And I need that to be, that's a problem I have with everything. Well, are you really going to sit there and type in first name, last name, and do another column? Use concatenate.
Yeah.
Write the formula down there, it's your information. Like boom. An index match. It basically matches, so it'll basically search a table of information, and then it'll pull a value based on like whatever you tell it to. So if you need to search for a name and a phone number, you can use index match to search for that phone number on another sheet based off of the names you have. So a lot of different uses for it, but it's a really good one.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that pro tip. I always forget how to use index match. Just Google it. There's always I always need that example that's there from Microsoft. Because I know VLOOKUP, but using index match always confuses me. So I always gotta Google it and like see how they translate. But yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for the tips. Do you have any, like, if you're comfortable sharing, do you have any future goals and plans that you want to share? Like, where do you want to live? Where do you want to work? What do you want to be doing?
I mean, I'm gonna keep up what I'm doing now with work. I really enjoy it. It's great. Like I said, I work with really people, and I genuinely see a future. And I want to keep building these skills, even if that means like I stay with a company long term, or I move into a role at another company that's doing RevOps specifically for them, or I go to be an independent consultant. I'm really not sure. So life will kind of guide me there when I get there. But for now, keep doing what I'm doing.
So your primary motivation is building your skills, right?
Yeah, just, you know, something I tell myself pretty often is just be better every day. Always forward is what I tell myself. So building up my skills, you know, personally, professionally, just learning to be a better person, you know, learning how to create more value. That's kind of how I look at it. As long as I'm continuing to do that, I'm pretty content.
Gotcha. this is just some advice for me, but I'm with you on that sentiment. I completely agree. I look at building my skill set. But I wanted to ask you, do you feel rushed to do that? Because sometimes I feel rushed.
Sometimes, yes. But what I can tell you is when I worked at Whole Foods, I was like, move up as quick as you possibly can. It was my motivation. To where I felt like when I moved into some of my positions, I moved into it way too fast. And that's kind of like, after going through a lot of that, sometimes I tell myself to like slow down, stop, think, you know. Sometimes it's okay to like relax, and things come with time. And it's a hard thing, like, especially when you're one of those people who you just want to keep going, you just want to keep getting better, you know. But what is really powerful is being consistent, instead of just getting things right away. You know, building those habits, continuing to like slowly learn. If you try to like do everything all at once and achieve everything all at once, it's a lot of times like you're not going to end up where you think you're going. So definitely a problem I struggle with at times, but I just try to remind myself, hey, like there's still time tomorrow, still keep going.
No, I love that, Jonathan. I think that was powerful. Consistency is what's the quote? Compound interest is the number one force in the world.
I don't know the exact thing.
Something like that, but yeah, consistency is key for sure.
Yeah, if you ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, I think that's basically his philosophy. That's what he talks about. You know, using really small incremental gains that you get from building habits and doing things, and you'd be surprised how much small changes over a long period of time make in your life.
Okay. I think this is a great place to wrap up. I'll plug in those books. It was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jonathan, I really appreciate you coming on. I think this is an awesome discussion. I learned a lot from it personally. I hope everybody watching does too. And yeah, I appreciate you, bud.
Yeah. Thanks, man. You have a great day.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to plug? Like LinkedIn, Instagram?
Nah. I have no socials, man.
I'll plug in your LinkedIn for you then.
I appreciate it.
Okay. That's it, man. I'll see you later.
See you, man.
Yeah. Bye.